Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you very much to the Board Chairperson of FP&M, Advocate Michelle Odayan, and thank you for your kind words. Let me also greet other board members of the FP&M who are present here. Let me also greet the Chief Executive Officer of FPM Seta, Dr. Feleng Yande, representatives of the Cape Media Corporation, distinguished presenters, government and ministry staff who are present here, providers of education and training, both public and private, employers, labor representatives, and our key stakeholders in the skills sector, learners, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed my great pleasure to be addressing this virtual leadership skills development summit hosted by the Fiber Processing and Manufacturing Seta in partnership with the Cape Media Corporation, and say congratulations to you on this. Indeed, career guidance, amongst other things, is a very important aspect and integral dimension of education system, which also this summit aims to partly address. As an interested party, government as a vehicle for the expression of the values and preferences of communities in our society in general, has developed policies, established institutions, and allocated both human as well as financial resources to enable the realization of education and knowledge aspirations of our citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, like many developing countries, South Africa's labor market, in anticipating the demand for what is regarded as the 21st century skills, operates within the context influenced by global trends in technology, including migration, urbanization, demographics, foreign direct investments, education, agriculture, and so on. These trends changes the nature of work and access to it. It cannot be denied that the major part of the skill sets that we need will now be driven by the fourth industrial revolution, as will the demand for individual and social attributes associated with team and project-based work, project management, problem-solving skills, and the ability to acquire and continuously update individual skills. When looking beyond the drivers of demand for 21st century skills, estimates show that the global labor market workforce of 2030 will comprise something like 3.5 billion workers. Unfortunately, most of whom will be unskilled and based in developing countries. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, it is anticipated that the labor force will decrease in Central Asia, China, Europe, North America, and high-income countries in East Asia, while the sub-Saharan Africa labor force is projected to increase by 328 million. Based on this, therefore, there will be a predicted shortage of an estimated 38 to 40 million highly skilled workers in developing countries, with the greatest demand being for graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, what we call STEM disciplines. This is a shortage of nearly 45 million medium-skilled workers by 2030 in our developing countries, also brought about by low rates of high school enrollment and a global surplus of 90 million low-skilled workers. For developing countries such as South Africa, this implies that we ought to equip our low-skilled youth with foundational literacy, numeracy, and STEM skills. That's at the heart of the challenge that we have. Indeed, in addition to those, We also need to produce youth that can actually be upgraded, upskilled, and with the necessary social skills to adapt to fast-changing environments. However, the attainment of these objectives remains a challenge as South Africa continues to face, as we speak now, an ever-increasing number of people who are not in employment, education, or training. South African government has taken a decision that in the light of all this, we must expand access and diversify what we call highly articulated education and training provision, as well as improving the quality of our post-school education and training systems' responsiveness to the world of work. I like to just emphasize, Program Director, this issue of an articulated post-school education and training system. In short, what this means is that we must get rid of any cul-de-sacs in our education system. In other words, no one must be able to pursue a program that then becomes a dead end at some stage. Like you go through a TVET college, you acquire, for instance, what is called National Certificate Vocational. You pass and do well, but you can't be accepted at university because it's taken that even at universities of technology, that you are actually coming from a particular stream. One of the biggest challenges that we have in our country is to have a flexible system that allows upward movement for those who want to do that, but also allows sideways movement for people who want to pursue other skills areas. That is why, for me, one of the most important things that we need to do when I talk about diversified education system is that we need a healthy mix between academic and vocational education. As a matter of fact, we should be having a larger vocational education and training system than the academic stream. I'm saying this also, Chair, because our statistics tells us right now that out of 100 grade 1 learners who start school this year, according to the current figures, that the current statistics, we hope that maybe this will improve in future, but not in many ways if we are looking, for instance, at 2030. Out of that 100 who start grade 1, only 6 actually complete university, enter and complete university. Now that is a real challenge. Where do the 94 go to? That is why I am arguing that we need a diversified and highly articulated system that will respond to our conditions, but in a manner that enables us to actually adjust globally. Now, we have then structured as government our own post-school education and training institutions to offer a diversity of programs, not only to take to account the needs of the youth who completed schooling, but also for those adults who did not, for those youth and adults who did not complete their schooling. It should remain as a concern to all of us that over 3.4 million young South Africans aged between 15 and 24 are disengaged from education and work. The youth unemployment rate, measuring job seekers between 15 and 24 years old, has hit a new record high of 66.5%. 2 million of our youth have not finished grade 12, while some of them are working in the informal economy. Now, government is now seized in the light of this. I'm raising this as challenges, not as means to demoralize ourselves, but to understand the nature of the challenge so that we design our post-school education and training systems and our skills development systems to respond to the challenges that we face as a country. And I think that's important for a summit like this to be very sensitive. That's why as government, we are seized with using our own resources, and internal capabilities to focus, for instance, on what we call the transition from learning to work. That's another very important cul-de-sac, by the way, that you get students finishing school or even finishing TVET colleges, and then they are stuck in unemployment. So the issue of focusing on assisting with this transitioning from learning to working, or from school to work, if you like. And that's why we are investing a significant portion of our budget to support our youth with learnerships and internships and other government-funded programs that help to create mass employment. We all know that our failure to integrate many people into the labor market threatens social cohesion and even the stability of our democracy, especially also because of the overrepresentation of Black South Africans in those who are neither in education, employment, or training. In order for us to then collectively deal with this concern, we need to ensure that we provide opportunities also for upskilling and reskilling of our communities. Our universities, TVET colleges, and community education and training colleges have strengthened their qualifications and curricula as required by our economy and the world of work today. This is to ensure that our post-school education and training sector produces graduates who are work relevant and, more importantly, who are able to participate, grow and develop the South African economy and help in the drive for local job creation and the implementation of our economic reconstruction and recovery plan. This is a plan led by the president, largely to respond to the negative impact of COVID-19 on our economy, jobs, and sustainable livelihoods. We have also initiated different programs aimed at encouraging young people to become artisans. This is aimed at developing qualified artisans to support the South African economy, particularly in the light of the successful implementation of our strategic infrastructure projects over the last decade. We have a campaign which is called, it's cool to be a 21st century artisan, because we are short of artisans as a country. We are making lots of progress as government, but we need more partnerships with the private sector to produce these mid-level skills that we need in huge numbers. Part of trying to address the shortage of artisans, for instance, we have established what we call centers of specialization in our TVET colleges. This is a program that is aimed at promoting and strengthening different and diverse program offerings to actually produce artisans. Now, these centers of specialization, what is distinct about them is that it's trying to do what we are supposed to do with vocational education and training, that we have designed curricula that is much more informed by what employers need. And also we are tying these centers of specialization to particular employers, such that you have got both theoretical and workplace-based training, which is what we need. So these centers of specialization, there are about 26 of them now. We are piloting them in particular trades. Some colleges are specializing in plumbing, others in welding, others in electricians, and so on, tied together such that then in future we are able to massify this such that all of our colleges operate like the centers of specialization that we are piloting. That's why Dr. Yende, when she was emphasizing the issue of employers opening their workplaces for our trainees, our students in TVET colleges, in universities of technology in particular, to get work placement for their experience is very important. In other words, one main message I just want to leave with you here for now is to say It's not enough just to blame government to say we are not producing the skills we require. How do we produce those if employers are not closer to our colleges and universities, for instance? If they don't sit in our councils of TVET colleges and universities to be able to actually say, here is the kind of curricula that we need for the place of work today. Yes, we must take our own responsibility as government for what we are not doing okay, but we cannot be able to do that completely unless employers come closer, not only to influence curricula, but also to provide work placement exposure. And work placement exposure, by the way, is not only for students, important as that is, but also we have a program that is seeking to expose, for example, TVET college lecturers in the workplace. Because we still have this challenge in our sector where you have got some lecturers, a lecturer who teaches at a TVET college public relations or human resource management, but has never seen public relations in action, has never seen a public relations department in a company in the private sector, but is teaching our students who actually supposed to graduate and become public relations practitioners. That is why also we are saying that this partnership that we need with employers must also extend to lecturers and not only to students. We have also, as a Department of Higher Education and Training, produced a list of critical skills and occupations in high demand so that we guide program offerings by our students, by our institutions in the post-school education and training sector. Many of the occupations on the list mentioned, critical skills, can be associated with key areas and sectors identified as crucial for the reconstruction and recovery plan. Sorry, just a second. Sorry, my apologies. Many of the occupations that are in the scarce skills areas include, for instance, things like skills for the digital economy, energy, infrastructure development, manufacturing, tourism, skills like electrical engineers, computer network technicians, concentrated solar power process controllers, mechatronic technicians, and so on. I am mentioning some of these things because I think that for all the participants here, I would request also that you familiarize yourself with our scarce skills list so that you know what are the skills that we need in our economy. Now, let me just say something briefly about the role of our SETAs in training. We are saying that as a country, we are very lucky, by the way. Many countries envy us that we've got these entities called the Sector Education and Training Authorities, the SETAs. We have 21 of them operating almost in every sector of our economy. And our SETA landscape is characterized by boards that represents, in the main, both organized business and organized labor, operating in designated sectors of the economy. The president in the State of the Nation address this year mentioned that, amongst other things, we need to focus on placement of students, those who require work placement, to effectively guide or realize this transition I was talking about from learning to working. President committed that not less than 10,000 TVET college graduates who need what we call in-service training must be absorbed. But in addition to that, through our skills initiatives with the SETAs, we are going to be having more than 100,000 learning opportunities, which includes learnerships, apprenticeships, as well as internships for this year. There are also, in addition to that, targeted numbers for artisans. For this current financial year, our National Skills Fund, in partnership with the presidency, has allocated a further 100 million rands towards what is called the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, which will benefit about 4,500 learners in the digital learning space, for instance, which is another area that we need more young people to go into. The National Skills Fund has further committed 200 million rands to employment creation initiatives between the Department of Higher Education and Training and the Unemployment Insurance Fund. And this project will benefit more than 5,000 unemployed youth. Now, I also need to add the fact that our SETAs are also doing a number of other, are also embarking on or engaged, rather, sorry, in a number of other very important initiatives. I've been saying to the SETAs, rise to the occasion, tell us more about what we are doing in order to counter this negative narrative about our SETAs, which in fact are doing a lot of important work. Let me just make one example, and there are many of them. With this very SETA that is hosting this platform, the FP&M Seta, which actually has got a wonderful skills center at Ndaleni in Richmond, in KwaZulu-Natal, working with the TVET, the Mkumundo of TVET colleges, offering occupational qualifications in skills like garment construction, furniture making, ICT, and that center in Ndaleni also has got free Wi-Fi. Now, this is a rural area, by the way, also an area that was ravaged by violence in the late 1980s into the 1990s, giving hope to young people who ordinarily would have been lost because many of them left school, did not qualify for university. That's amongst the 94, by the way, of the 100 that I'm talking about. Also, I must extend my appreciation to the FP&M Seta for having placed approximately 2,200 learners in the FP&M sector over the last 5 years, and for fully supporting our TVET graduate placement program. FP&M Seta is one of our best performing Seta, and over the past 3 years, it has been achieving 100% of its target, including its 5th unqualified audit opinion for the financial year 2020 to 2021. I'm also pleased to say, which is another important issue that I need to mention, that our SETAs are also collaborating, by the way, with one of the most organized institutions in society, which is the church. For instance, the FP&M Seta initiative in Ndaleni is in collaboration with the Methodist Church. We are also having extensive collaboration for community education and training with the Catholic Church, for instance, which has got Tabiso skills centers in many parts of the country, doing a lot of good work in empowering young people with skills such that they can get employment or start their own initiatives. But also the SETAs who have agreed that it's important that they support the high-end skills. Yes, our priority is on mid-level skills like artisans and other related skills, and also to focus on community education and training for those adults who have left school, or even young people who want to improve their education or want to acquire a skill, whether it be fencing, whether it be baking, in order to make a living, for those people who cannot be able to, never be able to go back to school again. But there are other high-level skills that are very important in a modern society today in the light of technology. These are skills that are being driven within the framework of my other department of science and innovation, especially in fast-growing areas like space science, for just by way of example, astronomy, many other areas that are very important, Some people often ask me, I need to say this without taking too much time now, Chair, that some people ask me, why, Nzimande, are you setting bursaries aside for space science, when we don't have housing here on Earth? Why are you bothering about space? The fact of the matter is, we study space, we use space not in order to just understand space, so that we can understand the Earth that we live on better. For instance, through space science, we now know each and every informal settlement in the country, where it is and what its possible needs are. We do that from studying it from very high up. For instance, through space science, we are able to understand our oceans and even estimate the amount of fish that we have in our oceans, which is very important for the fishing industry and the development of our oceans economy. So these skills need to be supported as well. And we want to say to our young people, there are many other areas. Look at how well we have done, by the way, as South Africa, in terms of using science to tackle COVID-19. The Omicron virus that we talk about today was discovered by work done by our scientists from South Africa. And there were earlier variants that we were the first in the world to be able to identify. So high-level skills in biomedicine and, as I say, space science, aeronautical engineering, and so on, are very important skills for society like ours. So I'm very pleased then to say that together with the Setas, we have done this. Before I conclude, let me also mention the fact that one of the entities that falls under my Department of Science and Innovation is that called the National Research Foundation, which, for instance, this year has awarded more than 3,000 research grants at various research performing institutions in our country. Without research, there can be no innovation. We must remember that. And without innovation, our economy will forever remain behind. These days also, we need innovation in areas like artificial intelligence, which is going to be the future. And any country that remains behind in terms of things like artificial intelligence is not going to get anywhere. As I conclude, Program Director, let me say that our commitment as government to education is unshaken. Our commitment to forming partnerships to advance a diverse, articulated, and responsive post-school education and training sector depends a lot on the partnerships that we must form. That's why I'm here addressing this platform, because I want to say to all of you, this government is prepared to partner with you so that we provide the skills that we need as a country so that we are able to grow and develop our economy. And I must say also that much as the focus of the country has rightly been on 15 to 24-year-olds or 18 to 24-year-olds, we focus on that, by the way, because that period for young people is the most critical. You either break out of poverty or you remain trapped in poverty if you don't make it just between the ages of 18 and 24. It's a very sensitive, it's as important as the first 5 years of a child. That is why we are focusing on this. But not only that, our skills provisions are also meant for adults who are out of school, who are working, who are not working, who can go to community education and training colleges, which we are expanding, as well as into all our other post-school education and training institutions. Let me take this opportunity then to thank you, Advocate Odaya. Thank also the board of the FP&M Seta and Dr. Feleng Yende and the entire personnel of FP&M Seta and the leadership of the Cape Media Corporation for hosting this Skills Summit. I hope my input which attempted to cover a lot of things we are doing in areas that require attention. I hope that it has given the appropriate and relevant context to the issues that you are going to be dealing with in your summit, and also in trying to identify education and training opportunities that are being pursued by my ministry and my two departments. I wish you all a very successful summit. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, that was the Honorable Dr. Blade Nzimande. I'd like to thank the Minister for truly dropping gems that remind us of why it is important for us to be patriotic to our country. Honorable Minister, you reminded me of the words by Dr. Neil deGrasse that says, ignorance is a virus. Once it starts spreading, it can only be cured by reason. And for the sake of humanity, we must engage and we must be that cure. You mentioned, the importance of having STEM disciplines and also the centers of specialization, which I think many of the private sector representatives that are logged into the summit look forward to engaging with your office and with the department to find out more. And I think we can't emphasize the importance of vetting our service providers, particularly the lecturers, as you mentioned, to make sure that we are appointing the right people and the right service providers to transfer the skills. So siyabonga kakhulu Mphephetwa, siyabonga kwala Mdluli. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Nzimande.